Hi, this is Eric Hills with WrangleWorks. Welcome to this demonstration of a new capability we're developing called the Supplier File Transformation Service. WrangleWorks is building this solution because the current approach to dealing with supplier file updates requires too much manual processing. The vast majority of the work is done in spreadsheets. There's no consistent mapping to downstream target templates. And when multiple teams are working on the same data at the same time, you either get duplicate or conflicting results. Overall, this manual spreadsheet-based approach wastes a lot of time, it leads to expensive rework, and it limits a company's ability to bring on additional suppliers and products. What if supplier files could be mapped to your target template in seconds? And the whole process end-to-end could be automated so that there were no errors in taking the updates and getting them into your ERP or other systems. What if supplier file transformation worked like this? 4 clicks, mapping the item number, the quantity breaks, the new costs, and then finally uploading the data to a cloud transformation service. 4 clicks and your work is done. With that done, the output files have now been created using automation in the cloud. And so what you'll see next is we're going to open up the output file from the example 1 supplier file, and what you see is that the fields that came in that specific format have been mapped to your specific upload template. Okay, let's look at another example where the quantity break columns, multiple columns, and associated cost columns are broken out separately. The process is the same, except that we're going to be selecting the multiple columns there for the quantity breaks and mapping those all at once, and then likewise the cost columns and mapping those. Otherwise the same, hit upload and you're done. As before, you now go to Wrangle Cloud, you select the file that was created. When you download the file, you'll see, as we saw in the first example, that the columns have been mapped, and in this case, since there were different columns for each quantity break and associated costs, that was pretty straightforward because that's the same way that your template is set up. Now that you've seen a few examples, I'd like to step back and explain the process. It's pretty straightforward. There are really just 3 steps. First, the user who understands what supplier files look like and also how they want the mapping to work goes into Excel and clicks on these various buttons to map the key fields. From there, they hit upload, and at this point a screen pops up which allows the user to validate the data and then submit. That's it. The final step in the process, as you've seen a couple of times, is for the user to retrieve the resulting files. We showed you picking it up in what we call Wrangle Cloud, but just as easily it could be emailed to you or put on a corporate server so that you could directly access it off of your network. 2 more examples. In this one, you'll see that the quantity break values are actually embedded as the column headings. And so we're selecting them in similar fashion, but in this case we only call out the cost columns and the product columns. And behind the scenes, the mapping algorithm works it all out for us. You'll see when we open up the file that those quantity breaks values are actually correctly mapped into quantity break 1, quantity break 2, quantity break 3. You may have noticed there were actually more than 3 quantity breaks in that file. We just mapped the first 3 for the prototype. The last example is interesting because there are no headings but it's not too hard for the user to figure out. They just simply add a row, and then based on their understanding of what data types you'd expect for product, for quantity breaks, and price costs, they select the appropriate columns, do the mapping as they had, and from there the process flows exactly the same. Well, that's it for the demo. We'll conclude by summarizing the benefits of the Supplier file transformation service. As you saw, the work from the user point of view is reduced to a few clicks up front to map the columns, and then in the end to retrieve the file and use it for their process. Automation is not only fast, but should be error-free once the system is set up properly. Lastly, you can imagine this automated system being able to coordinate the effort of multiple users and departments so that their work comes together without any problem. Thank you so much for your attention today, and we look forward to further conversations and feedback. All the best. P.S. Once you've taken this systematic and structured approach, of course, then you can run analytics. You're seeing an example dashboard here where you could track not only individual files to see where they are and give everyone shared visibility, but also have a bigger picture of the end-to-end process so that you can work towards your strategic goal of adding more suppliers and more products.